somebody being banged to the wall or something. Lots of a girl is crying.
Police department. What's up, bro? Come on here and talk to us, man.
No, everything is not okay.
This is Reuben Foster, and what I'm about to show you next is why I think he's the hardest hitting linebacker of all time. He was a scary, and I mean a very scary football player. What really made him stand out, at least in my humble opinion, is he reminds you a lot of them old school linebackers. He's got that mean and rugged play style, and he's wanting to knock your head off every chance he gets. Nowadays, we don't see that anymore because number one, they try to protect the players, and number two, it goes hand in hand. It's not allowed to do that stuff. I truly believe that Reuben Foster might be the last scary linebacker we'll ever see. In 2022, the more modern type of linebacker is a guy who's good in the pass defense, he's quick, and he can keep up with wide receivers. We're starting to get to the point, whether you're talking about college or the NFL, if you don't have a quick linebacker, you're going to get exposed. I would say a perfect and prime example of this is Micah Parsons, who played for the Cowboys, and he balled out. In this recent year, he showed why he's the linebacker you want to go after, whether it's in the NFL or college. Getting back on topic with Mr. Reuben Foster, when he was coming out of high school, he had a great combination of size, speed, and athletic ability. He wasn't just this big and bulky, hard-hitting linebacker, he could do a little bit of everything. If you needed him to check wide receivers or tight ends, he could do so, and he was also a run stuffer. If you don't want to take my word for it, hopefully this gives you a better perspective. As a recruit, he was ranked as the best player in the state of Alabama, the best linebacker in the country, and the 6th best overall recruit in the country. And oh yeah, how could I forget to mention, he was a 5-star recruit. What I'm about to say isn't my opinion, but going off of everything we know, I think it's facts. Reuben Foster might be one of, if not the greatest linebacker to ever play at the high school level. He was a flat-out monster at the high school level, and now that I think about it, he might arguably also be one of the most hyped-up recruits in college football history. Check this out though. He was in the class of 2013, and that's also when he signed to go to Alabama. But in 2018, only 5 years later, he would be arrested and never play football ever again. The word sad doesn't do it any justice. It's always beyond frustrating to me when we have a guy who has a special and rare talent and he throws it all away. But what makes Reuben Foster's story so controversial is nobody knows what to believe. What happened to this guy, it's straight up mind-boggling, and currently he's jobless because of it. Should he be jobless? I don't know. I'll let you guys decide that in the comment section down below. And there is a ton of questions that people have about this situation, even till today, but it all circles back to the main question we're going to try to figure out in today's video. What really happened to Reuben Foster? What's good, y'all? Real quick, we're on the road to 200K. On one of the previous videos, I said let's see how many new subscribers we can gain, and I'll tell you the next one, and we gained over 500. I really appreciate all the new subs, and there's currently a bunch of you watching and new people watching that haven't subscribed, so let's see how many new subscribers we can gain from this video, and I'll tell you the next one. As always, I hope you guys enjoy. Once again, we're on the road to 200K, so if you do want to help us out, I'd appreciate it. If not, that's cool too. And now, without further ado, let's get into it. Good old Reuben Foster. He has one of the most unique stories, or at least I think it's one of the most unique stories you'll ever hear about. I'm excited to get into this one. I hope you guys are as well. Let's just get straight into it. You know how this goes for any 4 or 5-star recruit at the high school level. They completely obliterate the competition. I don't even think Foster was your typical 5-star recruit. It looked like he could play at a D1 college when he was in 10th grade. This dude was just that good, and check out what a recruiting analyst had to say about him. Everything you've heard about Reuben Foster, it's all true. He's big, fast, strong, explosive, and finishes off his tackles as good as any player I've ever seen in this business. He's a complete package at linebacker. Like I said, there's not too much to say about his high school career. Whenever you're playing against future DoorDash drivers and plumbers, you're gonna look awesome. When he got to Alabama in 2013, he was as good as advertised. Alabama's been known for having great linebackers, great running backs, great wide receivers, overall great players in general, but I would say the linebacker position especially. I know recently when you think about Alabama football, or if you've been watching them the past 4 to 5 years, you think of great wide receivers, great quarterbacks, and great running backs, but when Nick Saban got there around 2008 all the way up into 2016 really, you always knew he was going to have one star linebacker. And when Reuben got there in 2013, it wasn't that he wasn't doing good in practice, there was just other great players ahead of him and he had to wait his turn. In that 2013 and 2014 year, he didn't start and he was mainly playing on special teams. Most of you watching this video, I'm going to assume that you remembered that vicious hit he had on Leonard Fournette. It was on a kickoff and I think it was Reuben Foster's freshman year, and that's when everybody was like, okay, this guy's gonna be a beast. Fast forward in time up to 2015, his junior season, he was officially named as a starter and he didn't look back. He was awesome for Alabama and he didn't have any off the field problems, and that's kind of foreshadowing because that comes into play later in this video. Like I said, his junior year was solid and he wound up deciding to come back for his senior year and he improved even more. In that senior season alone, he had 115 tackles with 13 of those being for a loss and 5 sacks. I'm going to emphasize that all throughout this video. He was a special player and a special talent. He was good in the pass defense, rush defense, he could hit hard, and he was also quick. If you could create a dream linebacker, it'd look something like Reuben Foster and play just like him. He could even cover wide receivers if he needed to at times. After that senior season, he also won the Butt Kiss Award, and for those of you that don't know, that goes to the nation's best linebacker. I don't think there was any debate whatsoever. Everybody knew he was the best, and I didn't think it was too close. When his senior year wrapped up, of course, he only had one option left, and that was to declare for the 2017 NFL Draft. And right when he left Alabama, this is when the controversies started to pour in. February 13th, 2017. Why is that date important? Because that is the date that Reuben Foster, it was announced that he was going to have surgery on his shoulder. Not exactly the best thing ever to be having surgery right before the NFL Draft. We saw the same thing with Nakobe Dean, who was a star linebacker for Georgia this year. If you have surgery, you could fall from a first-round pick to a third or fourth-round pick and lose out on millions of dollars. I think you know exactly where I'm going with this. That surgery, it affected his draft stock. Or maybe the surgery didn't affect his draft stock as much as this did. Reuben Foster was one of the 19 linebackers invited to the scouting combine. Weirdly enough though, Reuben Foster wound up getting kicked out of the combine because he got into what was labeled as a quote-unquote heated argument with somebody on the staff. Apparently all the players and people there, they were doing medical tests, and he got tired of waiting and said to one of them, "Do you know who I am?" One of the employees just looked at him and said he was gonna have to wait like everybody else. And then right after that, and once again this is according to the sources, Reuben Foster warned him that he'd put his hands on him, and the employee said, "Do it." And from that point on, it got heated and they had to be separated. Whoa, hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, why is that so weird? It seems normal. What was so weird about it at the time, and even looking back on it, is that Reuben Foster had zero problems at Alabama. He was known for being a really nice guy on and off the field, and he was always smiling. So whenever that news came out, many people were giving him the benefit of the doubt. It wasn't like this was his 4th or 5th time having a problem. This is the first time anybody's heard of it. And like I said, many out there were giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying maybe he just had a bad day. But as you'll see later in this video, and I hate to say this, it doesn't appear that that was just a bad day, and maybe that's how he acts. And oh yeah, before we go any farther, I do want to throw this in there. He had to do a urine sample test at the NFL Draft, and it was also reported that it was a dilute, which means they treat it like a positive test. So I guess technically he failed the urine test, and that also didn't help his case. Before we go any farther, I want you to think about the events that have led up to the NFL Draft. He had a major surgery, which is concerning itself. He had that problem with somebody on the medical staff, and he failed a drug test. All three of those things, I don't care who you are, it's going to make you fall in the draft, and that's exactly what happened. And I also hope this goes to show you just how good he was and how many teams wanted him, because he still got selected in the first round. I remember when it was going on, many said if these events didn't happen, he'd have been a top 10 pick. To make a long story short, he got selected with the 31st overall pick by the San Francisco 49ers. At the time, I also remember this, a lot of people were labeling him as the steal of the NFL Draft if he doesn't have any more problems. To get a guy like Reuben Foster from what he did at Alabama and dating back to high school, it would have been a steal. That's if he would have performed and lived up to the hype and expectations. I want you to think about this and look at it from Reuben Foster's shoes as well. If he'd have been a top 10 pick, he'd have made $25 million. But since he was selected at the 31st pick, he only made about $5 to $6 million. $5 to $6 million, it's a lot, don't get me wrong, but compared to $20 million, it's definitely crushing. For the 49ers in 2017, which was his rookie year, I'd say he was pretty good. He started in 10 games and he wound up missing 5 to 6 of them because he suffered an injury, but he came back from that and he didn't skip a beat. In only 10 starts, he had 72 tackles and 7 of them being for loss. And according to Pro Football Focus, where they do all these grades on players, he had an overall grade of 90.7, which was ranked first among all rookie linebackers. And if you want to go even farther, that 90.7 grade was ranked 4th amongst all the linebackers in the NFL. In that 2017 rookie season, Reuben Foster was looking like the Reuben Foster we've always come to know. He was fast, explosive, hard-hitting, good in the pass defense, and good in the rushing defense. Overall, a sound linebacker. When you're talking about a guy whose potential was through the roof, I think that's Foster. He had the talent and skill set to be one of the best linebackers in NFL history. But here's the thing. Maybe he didn't have the mindset. On July 13th in 2018, Reuben Foster was arrested in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for possession of marijuana. Not too long after that, on February 11th in 2018, only 3 weeks later, he was arrested again on suspicion of domestic violence and threats towards somebody else. That somebody else I'm referring to was his girlfriend at the time, and here's where things really start to heat up and get controversial. If you haven't paid close attention to anything I've said so far, you better lock in right here because you're gonna miss out. Here's where things get fishy. The second time he got arrested, in February, here's what his girlfriend stated to the police. She said that Reuben Foster hit her 8 to 10 times, dragged her out of his house, threw her to the ground, and spit on her in a domestic altercation. Ennis, who's his girlfriend, then alleged that Reuben Foster broke her phone and threw their dog at her. Among the injuries, Ennis, his girlfriend once again, suffered a ruptured eardrum that required a hospital visit the later day. Why did I say that? Later in the day. You get what I'm trying to say. She stated that on February 11th, but here's the fishy part. Only a day later, she calls the police and says, "Oh yeah, I lied about that. It didn't happen." She called the detective on the case on February 13th and stated she had been involved in a fight in San Francisco and she sustained her injuries there. So I hope you understand what I just said. If not, let me run through it briefly. She called the police at first and said Reuben Foster hit her and did all this terrible stuff, but then only a couple days or a day after, she claims that, he didn't actually hit me. I got these injuries from a fight somewhere else. If you're confused by this, don't worry, you're not the only one. I was confused by it, and so was the people working the case. It made zero sense whatsoever. How are you gonna call the cops, say this guy hit me and is doing terrible stuff to me, but a day later you're gonna say, "Oh, my bad, I lied about it, it was something else"? I think we're all in the same boat here. It doesn't make sense. According to the female, and these are the official reports and documents, she sustained those injuries on February 10th, the day before she called the cops. And she stated on February 10th she was getting her hair done when a driver cut her off and they got road rage, and that's how she got her injuries, from that fight. And now here's where things just get absolutely berserk, and it's why I say don't trust females and stay away from them, is because she admitted to stealing more than $8,000 from Reuben. And then on top of that, she also said she stole his account and routing numbers, so whenever he would receive checks from the NFL, they would go to her bank account or something like that. I don't really know how that worked and why she stole the routing numbers, but it's just insane behavior. Stay away from females, my guys. I don't know how or what she did with the money, but it was said at the time the bank got it and they returned it back to Foster, rightfully so. Overall, an extremely messy situation, but here's where the controversial part starts to linger around. Here's what a lot of people, and I'd say the vast majority, believe. They believe that Foster did these things to her because how in the crap and why in the crap would she make it up? It's not every day that somebody makes up stuff like that, and they also have bruises on their body. And I'm not saying you always believe women, but here's the counter argument. People are thinking, okay, they're together, they're in a relationship. If she sends him to jail, how is he going to provide money for their family? I think a lot of you are understanding where I'm going with this. She quickly realized in that day or two, oh crap, if I send him to jail, how am I going to get all the money we need for our family? Even if he did hit me or do some terrible stuff, we still need money. That's what everybody thinks happened, and I understand that completely. I'm not saying you should stay in a sucky situation because you're getting hit, because I honestly believe you got to have some self-respect. But if that guy's making all the money, you can kind of see how she was thinking. On April 25th, her lawyer would make an official statement through her that said this, quote unquote, Foster did not strike her, injure her, or threaten her life. The lawyer also added to it and said, The domestic violence claims were made after Foster attempted to end the relationship after she told him her injuries resulted from a fight with another woman. So there we have it, case closed. She admitted he did nothing wrong, so we can move on from that. Or can we? Only a few months later, and we're still in 2018, more domestic violence reports would come up, and I'll let you guys take a listen. This one, lucky enough for you guys, it was caught on the body cam from the police. Oh yeah, my bad. Let me give you some context to it before you just see a random video. So the neighbors was hearing a lot of screaming going on, and they called the police to check out what was going on with the situation. Now that you got some context clues, Matt wrote a clip.
Somebody being banged to the wall or something. Lots of a girl is crying.
And when Santa Clara police officers arrived, they could hear it for themselves.
I'm gonna stop it right there, but you can clearly hear, and that's just from outside, that Reuben Foster is screaming. And you have to realize that was just when the police got there. Who knows what was going on before they got there that the neighbors were hearing? They would then knock on the door and ask Reuben to come out, and here's what happens next.
Come on here, talk to us, man.
His girlfriend, who had months before accused him of domestic violence, then recanted the allegations on the courtroom stand, eventually follows him outside.
You want to talk to my partner over there?
I'm no private investigator by any means, but you can clearly tell something is not okay and something's wrong with that girl. She just seems really distressed.
No, everything is not okay.
What's going on?
I don't want to talk about it.
She's breathing really hard, and she even admitted it and said it's not okay, but I don't want to talk to y'all. Once again, I think it goes back to this, and I've heard stories of it. A girl's getting abused, but she just can't leave that relationship because the man's bringing in the money. It's a really sad situation, and you hate to see it. And I want to make this very clear. I'm not accusing Reuben Foster of anything. We don't know what happened just because that girl, she seemed distressed. There's no proof of him hitting her. I mean, it's totally normal in people of relationships to yell at each other. Okay, my bad. I don't think it's normal because I wouldn't do that, but it happens. Just because you yell at somebody, it doesn't mean you're going to jail. I also got to give Reuben a lot of credit because he's smart enough to realize he doesn't have to talk to the police, and he didn't.
So what's going on?
I'm not talking to her.
He doesn't have to talk to them.
All came crashing down though on November 28th in 2018 because this is when Reuben Foster was officially released by the 49ers because of his recent domestic violence arrest. Here's what the Tampa Police Department released. Reuben Foster slapped her phone out of her hand, pushed her in the chest area, and slapped her with an open hand on the right side of her face. This incident that happened on November 25th, the one that led to his release, it was real though, and guess what? It was coming from the same ex-girlfriend. In a lot of these quotes I'm going to show you, she goes by the name Ennis, so you can understand and see it's the same person. But once again, like I said, it's arguably one of the most controversial topics of all time. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Previously, only a couple months prior to November 25th, she called the police, filed a report, but then a day later said, oh my bad, I lied about it. And then fast forward in time to November, when you really need the police, why should they believe you? You already lied once to them, or apparently lied once, so they're going to be kind of skeptical. And what I just said is the argument that the 49ers even tried using against her. Here's what she said. Even when I called the police, the 49ers came up there. I have pictures of the 49ers coming up there trying to talk to the police, telling them I'm the same ex-girlfriend that sat up there and lied. If you are curious, and I'll show you right here, the reason that Ennis, the girlfriend, and Reuben Foster were in Tampa Bay, Florida, it's because they were trying to work on the relationship. And I guess you could say it didn't go so well. Here's what she had to say about it, quote unquote. We were both seeing therapists and stuff, trying to work on our relationship, so I was like, I can't believe you. You're back to doing this. And then when she said that, that's when it escalated. Like I said, he was released by the 49ers, and only 2 days after that, he was picked up by the Washington Redskins at the time that now go by the Commanders. A lot of people around the league, they were shocked by this, and so was his ex-girlfriend. Here's what she had to say about it. When he got signed, I was like, I can't believe somebody's picking him up. I just couldn't believe somebody picked him up in less than how many hours? I was shocked. When he got picked up though, it wasn't too good because he was placed on the exempt list, which means he can't practice or attend the games. The only thing he could basically do was go to the workouts and meetings. But then in 2019, finally some good news for Reuben Foster. The state attorney, he dropped all the charges and He was a free man because they stated, quote unquote, there was insufficient evidence against him. Unfortunately though, right when it seemed like he had some good news, he had bad news following that, because in his first practice back, he suffered a season-ending knee injury. You want to talk about bad luck? That's the definition of it. His first practice back, he had a season-ending injury. It doesn't get too much worse than that. The injury was so bad, he was placed on the injury reserve list for the entire season of 2019 and 2020. And ever since then, how do I say this nicely? He can't even get a job. On September 3rd in 2021, he worked out with the New York Jets. They didn't sign him. He then worked out with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They didn't want to sign him. And then recently, he worked out with the Cleveland Browns, and they didn't want to sign him. I also heard he worked out with the Dolphins, and they weren't too fond of him either. The most recent up-to-date on him, if you go to his Instagram, it still looks like he's working hard and training for his next opportunity. In his recent Instagram post he posted only 2 days ago as to when I'm making this video, he said, "The grind won't stop even when I'm hunting down running backs with my highlights on y'all's TVs." And the post before that, it's another video him working out, and he said, "Push forward even when life's trying to pull you back." Just going off of what I've seen on his Instagram and his quotes, it seems like he's really inspired to get back into the league. The only sad part about this, and I hate to say it because I'm rooting for him, I just really don't know if that's a legit possibility. Let's look at the cold hard facts. He only played 2 years in the NFL, in total 16 games, and the last time he's even played was in 2018. His last real shot and opportunity felt like it was going to be with the Redskins, but then he had that season-ending injury on his first practice. Just like everybody else, I felt like he was lucky to get that opportunity, and that was going to be his last one. I know it wasn't his fault he had that bad injury, but life isn't fair. I just don't see him getting another shot. I hope he does, but I wouldn't put my money on it. And I honestly believe this is a great example to my young men out there: stay away from girls. I'm not saying all girls are bad, but it's been proven a girl is arguably the biggest downfall to any man's life. Did Reuben Foster hit her? Did he do those terrible things to her? I don't know, but here's what I do know. A girl was involved in it. Technically, if you want to go by the law, they threw the cases out, so he's an innocent man. Once again, I can't emphasize this enough. A girl was involved, and that tends to be the biggest downfall of any man out there. I'm not saying Reuben Foster did those things to her. I'm not saying he didn't do those things to her. You can be the judge of that in the comment section. Here's what I am saying though, and I'm going to end the video off with this. Maybe if he wouldn't have focused about girls and cut them out of his life completely and just solely worked on football and getting better at football, he'd be in a different situation. This man was a stud at the high school level and a star at Alabama. Sadly, maybe that's all he'll ever be. Let me know your comments down below. Not your comments, your thoughts down below. But without a being said, peace.